Planet Zooers, welcome back to Houston Zoo. Today we're doing a Babirusa habitat that is next to the orangutans, as well as either at the end or the beginning of the Wortham primate walk. I realized that in some spaces I did name it incorrectly. It's Wortham, not Worthing. So I might have used Worthing instead of Wortham in some places. I'll have to go back and see if that's typed anywhere and fix it. Anyway, onwards with the Babirusa habitat. It's been sitting here for quite a while with just a closed off concrete barrier. So we're going to go ahead and finish it out. So I used that bamboo right there and just made a big copy of it later to move around and sped through that, as it's tedious and repetitive. So you get the idea. After a few, we're just copy pasting all the way around. And so that's the back side that faces, you have the Circle Cafe to the right, and behind this habitat you have all of the cats. So right here we're doing a gate. Any of these items, if you do want them up on the workshop, I don't mind putting them up. Sometimes I don't know what people want, or I forget. Case in point, I forgot this time. I wanted to make a blueprint of this gate here, the little section of the bamboos, and I think I made 2 other custom barriers for this habitat. In the front here, we're gonna do one all the way across in the same wood and mesh that I'm working with right now, and then we're gonna do another one later on with some metal and mesh. And then of course with the rest of this video there is a tour, so make sure you stay tuned for that. At the end there's some cinematics of most of the zoo, not all of it, and then of course this area. So here I'm putting on hinges. I really fought with that. I'm not really sure how those 2 pieces are supposed to go together, but I finally got it. I just kind of edited out a lot of my messing around with those hinges. I think I did go back and mess with them some more for a final look, but you get the idea there that I was putting in some hinges on the doors or the gate there. And I took off that extra piece for this one. It does add to the piece count to have 2 of them, but it does make it a little more difficult to get this in place. And so again, we're just going to skip going all the way around. It's the same thing over and over. This is the hard part of the habitat right here. And they have a little water pool for them, and I really fought getting this in. I wanted the water to look a certain way, so what I started with was these 2 pieces to make the curves, and I really just didn't like how it looked compared to what I was using for my resource image. So I went back and I grabbed this wonderful North American plaster, I don't know what it's called, a column, no, it's a cone, a medium cone, there we go. This is also used over by the orangutan habitat that Zoe's built, which is where I got the idea for doing this. It's a great idea. It looks great when you can rearrange them a little differently. Right now I'm just kind of getting the shape and spinning these around to fit, so it starts to do this, what do you call that? Not an incline, a decline? Anyway, a slope down. And that was why I chose to do this manually piece by piece, is it had a nice slope coming down for this water retention pool that they had for the Babirusa here. And so I really wanted to capture that slow slope as it came around that curve and almost into the ground, and then just real flat so you could see in to their water space. What I fought with was getting the water space to work. I don't know about you guys, but I've noticed on several of my builds here recently, they haven't been real friendly when it comes to some of the tricks I've used in the past, where if you make a barrier and you drop that down to the water's edge, it seems like every time I make one of those lately, it's not letting me drop all the edges. I've always got one that's not cooperating for some reason, and I can't figure out why. There's really nothing in the way, because technically if you have a 90-degree box, none of those should impact the water when you're sliding down. But anyway, this was the final rendition I went with, was a terrain stamp cylinder into the ground, and then just pushing a little slope in around the edges so they can get in. It came out a little bigger than I wanted, and I think that was kind of the problem I was having anyway, is what I was trying to create was a little too small. So since this had the look I wanted up against the water, up against the retainment wall back there, I decided to go ahead and keep it, and we'll just, make this less of a natural S and go ahead and bring the wall around this way instead of such sharp curves. So I think that was where I was really struggling with getting this in, because like I said, I tried this same technique, except I was trying to pull the walls up and then make a ramp down, all sorts of different ideas to get this in here. But in the end, I'm really happy with how it worked out. It did end up being a little further to back than I wanted it to be. I could have, I guess, made this curve over here less sharp and spun it the other way and got it out of the way. I did take some of the pieces off. However, I did just kind of build that right into it. It's like they come into the pool and there's their shelter. At least I think that's what it is. I'm not sure what they have back there. It was really covered up. It was hard to see. Just a metal building kind of blended in. So I did see that it was kind of open, and that's what I went for. And I could kind of see its shape from one side. So I just wanted it to fit, and I wanted the animals to be able to go inside and use it as a hard shelter. I'm not sure if the Babirusa in-game required the hard shelter. I don't remember, but they have one in the habitat at Houston Zoo, and that's the goal here, is to try to recreate these habitats as best as I can to reflect what you would see if you went to Houston Zoo. What I'd use for that is the Google Earth view. So some of these views may be a little bit outdated. I noticed that sometimes they're from 2017, 2016, so sometimes the images are pretty old. I do need to make another trip to the Houston Zoo, as Houston Zoo, is celebrating its 100th anniversary. So I do need to go back and check out the habitats. It's been about a year since I've been myself. So I need to put that on my to-do list as it gets a little warmer and not too hot. Houston goes from I'm kind of cold to, forget spring, we're hot. So it's already hot right now. Originally, I wasn't going to put so many of the beams on this. I was just going to put them up the edge because that was more how it was in the zoo building. But it really bothered me being able to see those pieces that were sticking out from where they just didn't quite line up. You could see the edge of that metal. So I went ahead and went around with all of it. I really struggled with this roof. I finally settled with this piece here and just shoved it back to match. And then I used this little, top piece just to kind of blend it in. I split it out. I split that other one as well. And then just moved this around to where it blended in nice and seamlessly, I hope. And then went around with some, the eaves. There we go. And on the top part, I decided I did not want to fill that in. It's a little off kilter here because I had to move it to fit the slope of the other roof. And so I just filled it with the bamboo. That way you have a nice breeze that can come through. It'll let the, heat out at the top if it gets too hot in there. And that's the idea of, little vents right there instead of a full closed off building. It is just their little hard shelter for me. I don't know, like I said, if it's actually a little keeper hut that the keepers can use, but it looked more like it was for the Babirusa and not for the zookeepers themselves at this point. They did have some of those buildings that I could see, and since it's Planet Zoo, I did add extras that I've just kind of tucked around. So it's not a full entire recreation all the way, some of the items, I guess, or habitats or buildings are put in because I need them for the zoo itself to run in the game, or I put them in because the animals just didn't exist in the game that are in those areas, kind of like the see, there I go, the Wortham primate walk. A lot of the primates that are there we don't have in game. So here is just a simple mesh metal barrier that I made. So I was going to put those two on the workshop. If you guys do want them, let me know. I'll go ahead and do it. I'll make a little barrier pack. I need to go through both of my zoos that I'm working on right now and probably do that. Just here, nice barrier pack. Here I did not take that extra one off. It is a little easier to move these around. If you'll see, they stay straight. When you take that other one off, they start going wonky. So it speeds it up to keep it there, but it does add pieces to the build. I guess I could go back and take the extra one off, but I didn't. And so we're just going to make that neat right here and get rid of those little extra pieces that we don't need. Along the back side, I decided we'll just use the in-game gate that we have, and I went ahead and just connected it right here with the same one that I put around the front side. So we're about almost towards the end of the build, so we just have some plants left to do, and we're going to make a custom education sign as well along the wall, and then we're going to do that little tour. So I was doing this from the top side because when you look at it from Google Earth view top side, there are a lot of plants here. You really can't see from the top side what all is there. So I was trying to fill it in as much as I could, but looking at it from a side view, I didn't want to do too much because there really was not a lot of trees going on inside their habitat to cover it. They had a good cover, but it wasn't, a whole lot of trees. So the trees that they did have were tall and covered this space a little bit more than the trees that I chose, but that's okay. I think it turned out pretty good. I think I got a nice compliment from a friend of mine, and even though it sounds weird, they said that looks like a zoo habitat. That's great. And to me, that is the best habitat I could get off of this build, that looks like what you would see at a zoo. And that's a good compliment because it's supposed to be, recreated from an actual zoo. So yay, we got the zoo look and feel. So I just decided I would cover that enrichment right there because they did kind of have, some big logs going on. It didn't look like they had an enrichment for them there, but I decided to keep it and just kind of cover up that space. And we're adding in plants in between the two barriers. They did have quite a bit of trees growing in there, as well as different plants. Adding some more bamboo to give them a little bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? Screening. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. And originally I was going to try a different color, but I didn't like that, so I went ahead and stayed with the same North American log here and put it the same color as what we have over there. And just made a real simple angled education board off of there, and then put two others right on the edges here. And that way, as they walk through here, they get an opportunity to learn about the Babirusa. And then we are done with our habitat here. Welcome to the entrance of the Houston Zoo. And we're just going to look at some cinematics. I can't talk today. Of past builds that I've done for this zoo. You can catch them all in the playlist if you see anything that strikes your interest. We've seen the entrance, the plaza, the seals, the nature encounters, a couple of episodes, the elephants are a couple of episodes, and we did not see the reptile house. And so here we are walking past the Wortham primate area and going by zoos or zoos, I'm not sure how you say that, build for the orangutans. And here we are at our Babirusa habitat. And I was super excited. I did manage to catch one swimming in the pool. I waited and waited for a while. I was like, I give up. I'm gonna go ahead and do my cinematics, and splash, there he is. And for our next video, I'm going to put up a poll on Twitter, so go vote. You can vote for the cats or the Circle Cafe, so habitat or building. Thank you so much for checking out my video. I hope you have a great day, and may the RNG odds be ever in your favor.